And welcome to another edition of College Sports Rush YouTube channel. We're talking some college basketball today. Jimmy Ott along with Paul Stone here on this January afternoon as we get ready for the Saturday full slate of college basketball. Paul, let's go right to the Big 12. And boy, what a conference it is this year. Texas Tech, of course, what a heartbreaker last year in the regional final. They had that lead against the eventual national champion Florida. What a tough beat. But boy, it's a tough place to play in Lubbock as well. And BYU with DeBonsa and all that team, man, this is a great matchup on Saturday. We're projecting Texas Tech to be a 1.5 point favorite against the Cougars. Cougars got more than they could handle. They were tested, did not cover at home against TCU on Wednesday night. Texas Tech blew out Utah. Utah's down this year. This is one of their weaker teams in a while. Paul, you're looking at the Red Raiders at home in this short number. It's inviting for me as well.
Yeah, Jimmy, I tell you, United Supermarkets Arena might not sound like a daunting place for visiting teams, but Texas Tech, I think they've got one of the more significant home court advantages in all of college basketball. It's they fill it up for the big games. It's a raucous environment, and the results have certainly been favorable for the home team, the Red Raiders. They are 9-0 at home this season, 39-5 at home over the past 2.5 seasons. So they fare well there. They are well tested this season. They have played some good people in non-conference. They've lost to the likes of Purdue, Illinois, and Arkansas. And then they defeated Duke 82-81 5 days before Christmas at Madison Square Garden. So they played some good people in non-conference. They have one conference loss to this point. They actually lost at Houston 69-65 last week, and that was after leading that game for most of the second half. So very competitive. Of course, Texas Tech, led by returning first-team All-America and reigning Big 12 Player of the Year, J.T. Toppin, one of the very best players in all of college basketball, 21.3 points per game this year so far, 11.1 rebounds per game. BYU, obviously one of the better teams in the country. They're not quite the same team on the road there. I think Texas Tech's home court advantage will be seen on Saturday. It is significant. I like the Red Raiders -1.5 over the Cougars.
You know, and Paul, they're well coached. And over the course of the season, I mean, they are better than they were a month ago. And I mean, it's just that simple. That's interesting with BYU with the transition because last year, after following Pope, I thought BYU shared the basketball. Their ball movement, their spacing was the best in the country. And I think that's why they handled themselves in their first year Big 12 competition so well. But with DeBonsa in who's going to be outstanding. And the one thing about him, such a highly projected player in the draft, he plays hard, man. He does. But their ball movement is not the same. So it's just kind of a different feel to this BYU team. But Texas Tech at home, no, I don't care what they call the arena, man. That son of a gun is hard to win at. There is no doubt. Let's move on to the Big Ten and look at Iowa and Indiana. You know, two teams that are projected in the field of 68, but two teams that come in on some losing streaks. Iowa has lost 3 in a row. Indiana has lost 2 in a row. We both liked Indiana last week. They got up 16 in the second half against undefeated Nebraska. Well, when Nebraska starts getting hot, you might want to call timeout. You might want to extend your defense to the perimeter because, man, when they get hot, they are unbelievable. This week rather, against Oregon on Tuesday night, it was nip and tuck. It was kind of an emotional letdown spot. And when they got hot, it was just lights out as they beat the Ducks by 30. But at home at Bloomington, I expect a similar type of performance. Listen, who's better here, Iowa or Nebraska? So Nebraska, that line went up. It went up higher than anticipated. There was some sharp action on the Hoosiers last Saturday, but now it's 1.5 is what we're projecting, and that line went off at 5.5. A lot of places against Nebraska. So I like the home court advantage again here for Iowa, Indiana. Well, and also because they lost that big lead. If they get up this time, I just think it's in their head to not get complacent, not exhale in this spot. But I know sometimes when you get burned and you have a tough loss like that, it's hard to follow up and continue to support a team like Indiana in this situation. But not for me. Give me the Hoosiers minus the 1.5, Paul.
Yeah, you mentioned the losing streaks that these teams enter on. Indiana, 2 straight losses, and Iowa now 3 straight losses after last night's 79-72 loss at Purdue, they have lost all, has Iowa, they've lost all 4 of their games this season played on the opponent's home floor. To be fair, though, to Iowa, in addition to Purdue, those losses on the road on their opponent's home floor came at the hands of Michigan State, Iowa State, and Minnesota. So some pretty tough places to play there. Indiana, again, they've lost their last 2, fell at home to Nebraska by 6, as you mentioned, last Saturday, and then lose by 21 at Michigan State on Tuesday night. But Indiana 10-1 this year at Assembly Hall, and a lot of teams in college basketball, they've got that pretty significant home road dichotomy. And I'm looking for a bounce back from the Hoosiers as well. I think the 1.5 is a pretty short number. I would expect Indiana to rebound here as well.
Bet Rivers is giving out college basketball profit boosts from 20% to 50% throughout the week for live wagers on Tuesday, same game parlays on Wednesday, and regular parlays on Thursday. See the Bet Rivers app for more details. Let's go from the Big Ten to the ACC. That's right, the ACC, and SMU at home to Dallas. SMU, without their best player, they still were very competitive against Duke and Cameron on Saturday and covered easily. Virginia, boy, how about the Who's here, man? A really impressive win at the Yum Center in Louisville, 79-70, and pretty much gate to wire in that one as well. So now they come in at a 4-game winning streak, including wins at NC State and at Louisville. SMU, on the other hand, needed a 3-point shot at the buzzer, length of the court down 2, and they knock it down. That would have been a 3-game losing streak. And I almost wonder if maybe the Ponies were looking ahead a little bit here. Sandwich spot at Duke, and then with Virginia coming in. But Virginia Tech was game. Virginia Tech led most of the second half in that game. But SMU at home we're projecting maybe to catch some points here. What, plus 1.5, Paul?
Yeah, you mentioned Virginia, that they've been good, and they've been good on the road as well. You mentioned the victories over NC State and Louisville on the road. Also beat a Texas team that has shown a recent resurgence, won in Austin over Texas by 15 or 20. So Virginia's been really good on the road. You mentioned the game last night against Virginia Tech. They're at Moody, trailing most of the game. They're down with 2.6 seconds to go, 76-74. Inbound it to Boopy Miller. He dribbles down the left side of the court and heaves it from about midcourt, and they win 77-76. Does SMU last night over Virginia Tech. Boopy Miller, before that long 3-pointer, was 0 for 5 from 3-point land last night. So he hit the only one.
We needed more of a quality look, huh?
Yeah,
from midcourt.
Yeah. He just needed his shot. That was his shot there. But, talking about Boopy Miller, he's a name, guys like us that follow the sport very closely are familiar with Boopy Miller, but he's one of the better players in the country that maybe a lot of people who don't follow it that closely have maybe not heard of. But this is a guy who's from Chicago, started his career at Central Michigan, played a couple of years there, transferred to Wake Forest where he played a season. Now he's in his second season at SMU, but he's that rare blend, that rare player who is equal parts scorer and ball distributor. I mean, he's a guy who leads his team in scoring, 20.6 points per game, but also leads his team in assists at 7.1 assists per game, which I'm sure puts him pretty close to the national lead. I mean, I'm sure he's probably top 10 in assists. Pitches in 4 rebounds a game and 2 steals. So he just impacts the game at so many levels. You mentioned the fact he didn't play at Duke, but they still remain competitive at SMU for most of the game. And I think the Ponies are a team, if they continue to play well and make the tournament, I don't know that anybody's going to be wanting to play SMU that first weekend of the tournament in March. Continuing along with Boopy Miller talk, and their most impressive win of the year a couple of weekends ago there at Moody over North Carolina, 97-83. He had a double-double. He had 27 points on 10 of 13 shooting, dished out 12 assists, only committed 2 turnovers. So just a really good player that people should keep an eye on. Virginia, one of the better teams in the country, but SMU, again, we're looking at a team that hasn't lost at home this year. They're 11-0 on the friendly confines. I'll take SMU plus 1.5 over Virginia.
All right, let's move on to the SEC. And five teams atop the SEC. Nobody is undefeated now that after Texas put it on Vanderbilt on Wednesday night in Austin by 16. So two of those teams, two of those five teams atop the standings in the SEC at 3-1 are Florida and Vanderbilt. They play in Nashville, Tennessee on Saturday, and it looks like when Florida lost their conference opener in Columbia, Missouri, 76-74, they dropped down to 9-5 overall. But there were some tough losses against some tough competition. You know about the three-pointer they lost when they had the lead late against Duke and Cameron and some others as well. I call this thing this championship hangover. I think it's real, especially for programs that aren't used to it or coaches. And for a young coach like Florida's Coach Golden, you could see some of the pace. So brutal schedule, non-conference schedule, and championship hangover. But Florida, this is the most talented team in the SEC, and they are starting to cook right now. By 15, a win against Georgia, Tennessee by 24, and then on the road in Norman, Oklahoma by 17. Vanderbilt gets knocked from the unbeatens when they lost again by 16 in Austin. So we're projecting this line to be Vanderbilt around 2.5 points. And I got to tell you, wherever you shop, including Bet Rivers. As soon as they put that out, and usually Friday afternoon, they start to trickle these lines out, start looking for it. I think you're going to get some public and sharp support of the Florida Gators now, because I don't think they should be underdog anymore the rest of the season. They're the most talented team, and now they are finally in form. And so I'm looking at taking Florida here. Vandy, I've always, well, you can't argue with the results. And they had some shaky performances, and then they go on the road like a decent Wake Forest team in Winston-Salem, just absolutely obliterate them, and go on the road and win some other games. It started out undefeated 3-0 in the SEC, but I'm not. I'm not ready to put them in as a top 10 team where all the metrics had them going into that Austin game. So you look at all the overall resume, and Vanderbilt's resume is better. I think Florida's roster is better. Give me points. This might be one of the last times you get the Florida Gators plus some points. And again, I think this line is going to get even tighter than 2.5, where we're projected to open. Give me the Gators plus points here. The informed Gators plus 2.5 in Nashville.
I'll tell you, as usual, Jimmy, I think you're spot on your assessment of Florida. I mean, they're ranked right now 19th in the AP poll. This isn't the 19th best team in the country. I mean, this is clearly a top 10 team. Their 12-5 record is incredibly misleading. Obviously, everything they do is with an eye towards March, and they're preparing for March. As I like to say, it's not always how you play, it's who you play. And the Florida Gators played some really good people in non-conference play, and now, of course, they're getting a smorgasbord of top opponents, basically game in and game out in the SEC. But three of their losses, I mean, they lose to now top ranked Arizona early in the year. And then they lose to, you mentioned the Duke lost to UConn also. Duke and UConn both were in the top 5 at the time of those games and currently in the top 6. So they have lost to some really good teams, played some really good teams. But again, this is not that record. The 5 losses might throw some people off, and the fact that they're ranked 19th might have some people thinking this is a borderline top 20 team, but this is a team that could again challenge for national supremacy. This is a great weekend of games, and this is just another one of them. Florida going to Vanderbilt, a Vanderbilt team that, like you mentioned, gets defeated by 16 by Texas and Austin Wednesday night. But it's going to be so interesting to see how they respond on their home floor against a team playing as well as anybody in the SEC. So I'm like you. I wouldn't want to fade Florida right now, because I think this is a team that's going to continue on a upward trajectory. And as you mentioned, could be the very best team in the SEC again this year.
All right, let's stay in the SEC and go to Norman, Oklahoma. Alabama traveling to Oklahoma. And Alabama, first Final Four ever 2 seasons ago. Last year, loser in the Elite Eight to Duke. So Nate Oates really got it going. But this team has had some bumps in the road and went to Starkville, Mississippi, lost to Vanderbilt. That was when LeBaron File on full body cramps, would only play in about 18 minutes. Coach Nate Oates was perplexed about that in the post game conference. They lose against Texas at home, which really shocked me as a double digit favorite against the Longhorns. And then they're down double digits in the first half at the hump in Starkville against Mississippi State, and they completely flip it and run away with that one, 97-82. LeBaron Philon, who's a projected lottery pick, 6'4" guard who's got moves. He just has so many moves, and he can score from anywhere on the court. He has just been on fire this year. Maybe he's get those full body cramps healed. As far as the Oklahoma Sooners, they have lost 3 in a row now after opening up conference play with an 86-70 win over Ole Miss. Losses at Starkville, College Station, and at home where they were not competitive against the Florida Gators. So Alabama and Oates was really, really rough on his team in the media, and so called out their toughness and a lot of things. And they're down a couple of guys as well. But the top 5 in scoring, Alabama, I wonder if they turn in the corner a little bit. We're talking about well-coached teams. And the other thing about Alabama, because they are so it's the same approach no matter who they play. They shoot threes, layups, and dunks. They just don't attempt a whole lot of mid-range shots. Philon is different because he scores all over the court. But for whatever reason, I've tried to theorize it because they have been much better on the road than a lot of college basketball teams. And I just think the one thing about Oates is you look at the box score and 90% of their shots are dunks, layups, or three-pointers every game. We're projected a line to be about 4.5 in Norman. Keep in mind, Porter Moser with that Cinderella story at Loyola Chicago got them to the Final Four. He was on a hot seat last year. They got their way into the tournament. They were one of 14 teams of the 16-team SEC to get in. But you wonder if he's on the hot seat as well. From what we understand, all their NIL or collectives is to football right now and not so much to basketball. But you like the Tide here, Paul, laying the points on the road where they're just comfortable, more comfortable than most playing on the road.
Yeah, I tell you, and just to be clear, I actually like Oklahoma here.
I'm sorry, Paul.
So no big deal there. After the game's over, maybe I'll switch depending on the final score, I might switch to liking Alabama. But from my perspective, this is just a case of playing the desperate home dog in dire need of a victory. Alabama, a team that lost at Texas, as you mentioned earlier this week, actually, or over the weekend. Sooners going to be getting points, so they don't have to necessarily win the game. They just have to keep it close. And this is a team in Oklahoma that started the year 11-3. They've now dropped, as you mentioned, 3 straight SEC games. Their most recent loss coming at home to Florida, 96-79 this Tuesday. And again, at 1-3 in SEC play, I just expect the Sooners to pull out all the stops this weekend against Alabama. Oklahoma, they're led by their guards, Nigel Pack and Xavier Brown. Both those guys average 15.7 points per game. Pack's name should certainly sound familiar. He's a guy that's been around a little bit, began his career at Kansas State. He was actually a first-team All-Big 12 selection for the Wildcats there in Manhattan. Then he later transferred to Miami, Florida, led Miami to their first ever Final Four appearance in 2023, and now he's an Oklahoma Sooner. An interesting note about this Oklahoma team, Nebraska obviously still undefeated at 17-0, ranked in the top 10. Oklahoma, they played Nebraska in a neutral site game in Sioux Falls, South Dakota back in November. Oklahoma led in the first half of that game by 16 points. Nebraska rallied kind of like they did this past weekend. They rallied from 16 down in the first half. They won that game over Oklahoma in Sioux Falls, 105-99. Nebraska hit 15 three-pointers in that game. So just a little side note there. But I think Oklahoma is going to, it's tough to go on the road in these power conferences and get a victory because of the level of opponents. You just don't have too many lower level teams in these major conferences. So I like Oklahoma to keep it close, fighting for their lives per se, quote unquote. So Oklahoma plus 4.5 over Alabama.
Yeah, rebound performance after really not being in the game. It was double digits pretty much from jump this week against Florida. So yeah, when the teams again a little desperate spot, maybe a big effort here by the Sooners at home. Let's take in the SEC and go to Knoxville, Tennessee. What a game this Tuesday night with Texas A&M Buckyball. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around Buckyball and coming to the first year coach from Sanford. I know one thing about it is they are completely different stylistically than what Buzz Williams was, who liked to half court, walk it up, physical. We're gonna bang the boards, kind of Houston light, to really get a lot of offensive rebounds and try and lean on you a little bit. Buckyball, they press, and their press is tough, man. Their press is it seems like sometimes they're pressing with like 6 or 7 guys on the court. They really do. There's token pressure, and then there's legitimate pressure, and they create some turnovers, and they also fire up a lot of threes. So it's really an extreme approach, stylistically that A&M, and I'm just wondering how good they are. That was a tough luck loss for them. Some calls went against them down the stretch in Knoxville, and they led for most of that game against Tennessee. Why I bring that up is because Tennessee, I think this is the most talented roster that Rick Barnes has, but it's far from his best team at this point. One thing we could always count on for Rick Barnes' team was they are going to defend you to death. They're going to out rebound you. Sometimes they would just go through these serious scoring droughts. This team has more firepower. They score more points per game, but they don't defend as much. But because it was hard, and especially for their 5-star true freshman of 6'10" forward, Ament, he really grew up. He's a little, he's a true freshman, a little slender. He hasn't physically matured as of that. And a lot of opponents are trying to, lean on him a little bit and body him up. Man, he had some tough points. It was a career high from him. And, Damian Fishburne, who was on the call as a color analyst for the SEC network, he said, man, you can watch this kid grow right in front of our eyes. I think maybe Tennessee has turned the corner a little bit. I know one thing, Tennessee's way better than LSU, who had an 18-point lead on Wednesday night down in Baton Rouge against Kentucky. Kentucky had no business winning that one, but shades of Christian Laettner. Length of the court pass to the elbow, turnaround jumper from their big, and he knocks it down, and Kentucky steals one in Baton Rouge. This Kentucky team is just not that good. Tennessee is always going to be excited to play Kentucky. That goes as long as they've been playing. So projected a lot to be about 5.5. Give me the Vols because a little bit struggling a little bit. Got blown out in Gainesville. Looked like they were losing it. And let's face it, should have lost to Texas A&M, but maybe found something, maybe grew because it was just a tough win for them against A&M. I'm going with the Vols here, minus the points, ball.
Yeah, you mentioned Kentucky's come from behind win Wednesday night in Baton Rouge there, come from 18 points down to win 75-74. But you also mentioned the fact that this has been a season for the Wildcats with far more downs than ups to this point. And to be fair, Big Blue's been hit hard by the injury bug. They have been probably one of the more impacted teams in all of college football, all of college basketball. Get my sports right here. To this point, the injuries have taken their point guard, Jalen Lowe. He's been pronounced to be out for the year earlier this week. And then their big man, Jaden Quintance, he's recovering from a torn ACL. So they're kind of bringing him along slowly. He's only appeared in 4 games this year. They're hoping to work him in more as the season progresses, but they've just been playing shorthanded, and they maybe weren't as good as they've been in some years to begin with. So it's not your typical Kentucky team. Tennessee, they remained undefeated at home by virtue of that double overtime win over Bucky McMillan and Texas A&M, 87-82. And like you, this game means so much to Tennessee. They kind of, from a basketball perspective, operate in the shadow of Kentucky, as do many teams in the Southeastern Conference. But I think Tennessee's got the better roster. Kentucky fighting those injuries. I'm with you here. I think the Volunteers are going to take it to the Wildcats there on Saturday.
Yeah, Jalen Lowe, Coach Mark Pope talked about Lowe, the transfer from Pittsburgh, the junior point guard, and said that shoulder, that arm keeps The shoulder keeps popping out of socket. They've tried everything they can. They've got to go to surgery. So he's undergoing surgery. Did make the trip to Baton Rouge on Wednesday, but did not suit up for Kentucky, and he is out for the season. So again, Kentucky maybe as disappointing of a season, and I know some. But falling below their projections this year as anybody. And keep in mind where most of the collective percentage in the SEC for basketball is 15%. Kentucky's got 45%. They want to win more than anybody in the SEC, but very fortunate to get out a winner in Baton Rouge. And LSU has not won a conference game yet. They're now 0-4 in the league. All right, the Magnolia Bowl here, State and Ole Miss. Mississippi State, that's right. Around here, we just call them State. That's Mississippi State at the Humpty Hump in Starkville, Mississippi. It won't be an empty seat for this one. Ole Miss, though, wondering if they're turning the corner. Chris Beard, we know how good he is can be. But talking about the disappointing season, Ole Miss, I mean, with the returning starter in Malik Dia and the all-French backcourt, experienced guys coming in, and then you add a guy like A.J. Storr from Wisconsin. Man, I thought the Rebels, who had a heartbreak loss in the Elite Eight last year, in the Sweet 16 against Michigan State, man, they should have won that game. But you just think they would be really rolling, but they haven't. But they have put a couple of wins together, and now they go to their rival, Mississippi State. This line might have been a little bit higher. They really rely on their guard, Hubbard, who leads them in score at almost 24 a game. Projecting a soft number here at maybe 2.5 at home, Paul.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Mississippi State, first of all, almost certainly destined to finish in the bottom half of the SEC standings. But a couple of things have attracted me to the Bulldogs here. First of all, you mentioned Josh Hubbard. I mean, he is a scorer. He's one of the league's best scorers. He's only 6 foot, but he can heat it up. Averages just a shade under 23 points a game and has actually scored 30 points or more in 3 of the Bulldogs' last 7 games, and that includes that 38-point outburst a couple of weeks ago in Mississippi State's 101-98 overtime victory at Texas. So Hubbard is a scoring machine there. And then secondly, Mississippi State can be a very difficult out, if you will, at Humphrey Coliseum, a.k.a. the Hump. The Bulldogs, they've already defeated, Memphis, pretty good Memphis team, good Oklahoma team at the Hump this season, and actually led SMU by 9 with 9 minutes to go at the Hump earlier this year before losing that game in overtime. So they've been a different team at home. You mentioned this Ole Miss team kind of got off to a somewhat of an up and down start, maybe not quite living up to expectations, but they are off their most notable, most impressive victory of the year to this point. Won at number 21 Georgia Wednesday night, 97-95 in overtime. You mentioned A.J. Storr. He had 27. A.J. Storr actually on his 4th school in 4 years, which maybe is not that unusual in today's environment of college athletics. But he had 27 to lead the Rebels. I think he's had 53 in the last 2 games. So he's starting to heat it up a little bit for Ole Miss. But that was the victory over Georgia. I believe their first victory over a power school away from home all year. But I think Mississippi State's going to have a little something for them on Saturday. I like Mississippi State to win by 3 or more over Ole Miss in Starkville.
Talking about a scorer, Josh Hubbard, a high school phenom, the all-time leading scorer in the state of Mississippi, scored 4,367 points. So he talk about a guy can score in a bunch of ways. Not a big guy, but man, he can get his shot off. And yes, right at 23 points a game. All right, college basketball. It's done. We're done with college football. It was a great run from our conference previews, win totals, and picks to win the conference back in the summertime, all the way to the national championship game down and Hard Rock. So we'll continue with college basketball twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott on the College Sports Rush YouTube channel, brought to you by our friends at Bet Rivers.